In 1901, sponge divers off a Greek island called Antikythera pulled a corroded lump of bronze and wood out of an ancient shipwreck. It was set aside in the Athens National Archaeological Museum. For 50 years, no one knew what it was. When it was finally understood, what it turned out to be should not have existed. In October 1899, a storm drove a Greek sponge diving crew off course in the Aegean. They sheltered in the lee of Antikythera, a small rockier island between Crete and the Peloponnese. When the weather broke, one of the divers, a man named Elias Stadiates, went down to look at the seabed and surfaced reporting that he had seen statues, bronze, marble, lying in roughly 4 to 5 meters of water. The Greek government organized a recovery operation. Over the next year, divers brought up the cargo of a Roman-era shipwreck, bronze and marble statues, gold jewelry, glassware, coins, amphorae. The cargo dates the wreck to the 1st century before the Common Era. The most reasonable estimate puts the loss between 6 to 5 and 50 BCD. Among the recovered objects was an unimpressive-looking lump of corroded bronze and wood, roughly the size of a shoebox. It was set aside. In May 1902, a museum archaeologist named Valerios Stais noticed that the lump had cracked open during drying. Inside were what appeared to be precision-cut bronze gear wheels. Some of them had teeth as fine as 1.5 millimeters. Stais published a description. No one believed him, or rather, no one believed the gears were as old as the rest of the cargo. The standard view was that they had to be a modern intrusion, a piece of a clock or a navigational instrument that had fallen onto the wreck site after the wreck. Geared mechanisms of this complexity were not, on the standard view, a Greek capability. The Antikythera fragment sat in storage. For the next half-century, it was an item nobody could explain and nobody wanted to argue about. In 1951, a British science historian named Derek de Solla Price began studying the Antikythera fragment in detail. He took photographs, then radiographs. The radiographs showed something that the visible surface had hidden, at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, in 3 concentric layers, with a pin and slot mechanism on at least one of them. Price published a short paper in 1959. He revised his analysis through the 1960s. In 1974, he published a long monograph, Gears from the Greeks, in the Transactions of the American Philosophical Society. Price's argument was that the device was an analog computer for predicting the positions of the Sun, the Moon, and at least some of the planets, calibrated to the Greek lunisolar calendar. The pin and slot mechanism modeled the Moon's elliptical orbit, specifically the variable speed of the Moon across the sky, which Greek astronomers had named but did not have a working physical model of. Most working historians of ancient technology, on Price's publication, accepted that the Antikythera mechanism was what he said it was. The conventional dating of bronze-geared computation by 1,000 years was wrong. In 2005, an international group called the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project began a new study using a custom 8-ton X-ray CT scanner built by the British firm X-Tech and a high-resolution surface imaging system from Hewlett-Packard. The CT scans resolved the interior of the corroded bronze in 3 dimensions, layer by gear layer. They allowed the team to read inscriptions on the bronze that had been illegible on the surface. The inscriptions are now estimated at over 35,000 characters of ancient Greek text, a kind of operating manual for the device. The team's findings, published from 2006 onward in Nature and other peer-reviewed journals, refined the model. The mechanism predicted, in addition to solar and lunar positions, the dates of solar and lunar eclipses on the Saros cycle. It tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. It modeled the variable speed of the Moon. It almost certainly modeled the positions of at least 5 known planets, although the surviving gear train for the planetary section is incomplete. The mechanism worked. It was hand-cranked. A single rotation of the input crank advanced the entire interlocking calendar by a calibrated amount. The output dials displayed the positions of celestial bodies on a date the user could select. No other object like the Antikythera mechanism survives from the ancient world. There is no second example. There are no fragments of a similar mechanism from anywhere else in the Mediterranean. What survives are scattered ancient references, passages in Cicero, Pappus, and others to mechanical models of the heavens, attributed variously to Archimedes and to Posidonius. Cicero, writing about a century before the Antikythera shipwreck, described a planetarium owned by his teacher Posidonius that displayed the motions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets. Until 1959, those references were generally treated as legend or as exaggeration. The Antikythera mechanism is, at minimum, evidence that the technical capability described in those passages existed. It does not prove that the mechanism was made by Archimedes. It does prove that someone in the ancient Greek world could make something of this kind. Geared mechanisms of comparable complexity do not reappear in the surviving record until the medieval Islamic astrolabes of around 900 CE and the European astronomical clocks of the 1300s. Between the Antikythera mechanism and its nearest surviving successors is a gap of roughly 1,000 years. This does not mean nothing was made in that 1,000 years. It means nothing has been found. Bronze corrodes, wooden housings rot, small precision objects are easily lost, but the absence is striking, and it is one of the things that makes the Antikythera mechanism so difficult to fit into a clean narrative of how technology develops over time. The mechanism is a single surviving example of a technical tradition we do not otherwise have. A corroded lump of bronze and wood, recovered by sponge divers from a Roman-era shipwreck, sat in a museum drawer for half a century before anyone made sense of it. When sense was made, the device turned out to be a hand-cranked analog computer for the positions of the sun, the moon, the planets, and the dates of eclipses, made by Greek craftsmen roughly 2,100 years ago. No comparable object from the same period survives. The closest known successors are 1,000 years later. Whoever made the Antikythera mechanism left no instruction manual we can read in full, no second mechanism we can compare it to, and no continuous tradition we can trace forward. It is, in the most literal sense, the only one of its kind we have.